Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Chapter 8, verse 12. Perhaps anyone who doesn't have on their phone, they could share with those who do. Madhya 8:12. Sevane katakshana kari nritya gana. Sevane katakshana kari nritya gana. Godavari parahana tahan kailasnana. Godavari parahana tahan kailasnana. Please chant. Sevane katakshana kari nritya gana. Godavari parahana tahan kailasnana. Sevane katakshana kari nritya gana. Godavari parahana tahan kailasnana. Sevane katakshana kari nritya gana. Godavari parahana tahan kailasnana. Sevane katakshana kari nritya gana. Godavari parahana tahan kailasnana. Very good. Anyone else? Okay. Let's say the synonyms together, please. Sevane, in that forest. Katakshana, for some time. Kari, performing. Nritya gana, dancing and chanting. Godavari, the river. Parahana, crossing. Tahan, there. Kaila, took. Snana, bath. Translation together. After performing his usual chanting and dancing for some time in the forest, the Lord crossed the river and took his bath on the other bank. Okay, so we're going to read a description now of Lord Chaitanya meeting Ramananda Roy. So Lord Chaitanya is going on his tour of South India. This is at a fairly new time in his sannyas, and this is a blissful opportunity for him to go and travel as he has been in his hometown, stationary for a long time. Now he's going to finally execute his dharma as a sannyasi more actively. And he's met with the great Pandit, the great learned scholar in Jagannath Puri, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who said, while you're out traveling, you really need to meet Ramananda Roy. So this section describes when the two of them meet. So I'll just read the translations for these next few verses. After bathing in the river, the Lord walked a little distance from the bathing place and engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna. At that time, accompanied by the sounds of music, Ramananda Roy came there on a palanquin to take his bath. So of course a palanquin is a conveyance that is carried by servants. So it's an interesting contrast. Lord Chaitanya, the sannyasi, is walking on foot, chanting and dancing. Ramananda Roy is coming in on a palanquin being carried by servants. I mean, there's no wheels involved. This is all manual labor. So it's a very, prestigious arrival. Lord Chaitanya, the renunciate, and Ramananda Roy, the government official. And not only he's coming in on a palanquin, but there's music playing, like a marching band to accompany. Many Brahmins following the Vedic principles accompanied Ramananda Roy. According to Vedic rituals, Ramananda Roy took his bath and offered oblations to his forefathers. So he's also accompanied by these priests to keep him doing the proper thing spiritually. This is another beautiful tradition. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand that the person who had come to bathe in the river was Ramananda Roy. The Lord wanted so much to meet him that his mind immediately began running after him. Although Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was running after him mentally, he patiently remained sitting. Ramananda Roy, seeing the wonderful sannyasi, then came to him. So why would Lord Chaitanya have this desire to run after him but not do so? Because he's a sannyasi, right? So for a renunciate to chase after a rich and powerful person is inappropriate. Rather, the powerful, rich person should come to the renunciate. So in this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, although his mind is so attracted by this other Vaishnava, he's observing the protocol. Srila Ramananda Roy then saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be as brilliant as 100 suns. The Lord was covered by a saffron garment. He was large in body and very strongly built, and his eyes were like lotus petals. When Ramananda Roy saw this wonderful sannyasi, he was struck with wonder. He went to him and immediately offered respectful obeisances, falling down like a rod. The Lord stood up and asked Ramananda Roy to arise and chant the holy name of Krishna. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very eager to embrace him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then inquired whether he was Ramananda Roy. And he replied, "Yes, I am your very low servant and I belong to the Shudra community." So Ramananda Roy was, what we call a kayasta, which is a person who is in the Shudra community is considered the servant community. But amongst the kayastas, they're sort of like the executive Shudras, you could say. They're administrators, they have money, they have financial skills, and so although they're in a position of servitude, they have very responsible positions. And indeed, the Kshatriyas, the rulers, depend on these people. You might say bureaucrat. Maybe bureaucrat is the right word, like the expert bureaucrat who has a lot of responsibilities. So that person is not the leader, but the leaders depend on that person very much. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then embraced Sri Ramananda Roy very firmly. Indeed, both the master and the servant almost lost consciousness due to ecstatic love. They had just met, and yet they're embracing and almost fainting out of ecstasy. And we'll read the purport here in text 23. Their natural love for each other was awakened in them both, and they embraced and fell to the ground. Purport. Srila Ramananda Roy was an incarnation of the Gopi Vishaka. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Lord Krishna himself, there was naturally an awakening of love between Vishaka and Krishna. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combination of Srimati Radharani and Krishna, and the Gopi, Vishaka, is a principal Gopi assisting Srimati Radharani. Thus the natural love between Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awakened and they embraced. And the next text. When they embraced each other, ecstatic symptoms, paralysis, perspiration, tears, shivering, paleness, and standing up of bodily hairs appeared. The word Krishna came from their mouths falteringly. When the stereotyped ritualistic Brahmins who were following the Vedic principles saw this ecstatic manifestation of love, they were struck with wonder. All these Brahmins began to reflect as follows. The Brahmins thought, "We can see that this sannyasi has a luster like the effulgence of Brahman, but how is it that he is crying upon embracing a Shudra, a member of the fourth caste in the social order. They thought, this Ramananda Roy is the governor of Madras, a highly learned and grave person, a Mahapandit, but upon touching the sannyasi, he has become restless like a madman. While the Brahmins were thinking in this way about the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw those outsiders and restrained his transcendental emotions. Purport. Ramananda Roy was intimately related to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, he can be accepted as a Sajatiya, a person within the intimate circle of the Lord. The Brahmins, however, were followers of the Vedic rituals and were not able to have an intimate connection with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Consequently, they are called Vijatiya Loka. In other words, they were not pure devotees. One may be a highly learned Brahmin, but if he is not a pure devotee, he is a Vijatiya, an outcast, one outside devotional service. In other words, a non-devotee. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy were embracing in ecstasy, the Lord restrained his transcendental emotions upon seeing the outsider Brahmins. And again, why would he restrain his emotions? Exactly, they've just criticized, they really could not appreciate what was going on internally in him. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita is all about relationships. And these relationships have so many unique flavors that many things that we have never experienced in our lives are being described in these pages. Have you ever just met a total stranger for the first time? Someone perhaps you've heard about but never met before, but then embraced them? Have you ever embraced anybody and fallen on the ground in ecstasy? These are intense kind of experiences that are a little foreign to ordinary society. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu restrained, okay, I don't want these Brahmins to see. Now these Brahmins are interesting players in this whole drama because they are supposedly the adherents and the protectors of religion, the upholders of Dharma. And so they're accompanying this great leader, Ramananda Roy, so that he can always be sure that he's upholding Dharma and doing things. This is why the social leaders, intelligent social leaders, want to have Brahmins in their company, because then they'll always be on the straight and narrow. So they have this very important and official role to play, and yet they don't have a clue about what's going on in exchanges between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Roy. They can't understand it. They're bewildered on both sides. Why would the sannyasi embrace a Sudra? Sannyasis are supposed to be like the gurus of the whole society, and the Sudras are the lowest caste. So why would the sannyasi embrace a Sudra? And on the other hand, Ramananda Roy is a very learned person, a responsible government officer. Why would he become so agitated seeing the sannyasi, and why would he embrace a stranger in this way and then become like a little crazy? So all of this is way beyond the comprehension of the Brahmins. This calls to mind, of course, the pastime of the wives of the Brahmins, when Krishna and his brother were hungry in the forest of Vrindavan, along with their cowherd boyfriends. They asked Krishna, please, we're hungry, what should we do? He said, go ask these Brahmins nearby, they're performing a sacrifice. And when there's a sacrifice, there's always food involved. And your young boys, you can go and ask for some charity from these Brahmins. So the boys went and they said, excuse us, sirs, we know you're very busy with your rituals, but we're very hungry, and Krishna has sent us here to ask you for some food. Now we know that it's not appropriate for you to eat in the middle of your sacrifice, but the offering has already been made, and it is always appropriate to feed elderly or young people or dependent people. So please give us some food. So the Brahmins, who are very busy with their rituals, didn't even look at the boys. They just went on with their sacrifices with their noses in the air and didn't give them the time of day, as we say. No, you're not even consequential enough to us to even look at, what to speak of giving you food. It's like when we make an offering, sometimes there's very intense schedules, and we're asking, is the prasadam on the altar? Is the bhoga on the altar yet? If it's on the altar, then it's okay. Then the devotees can take some prasadam and go run out the door. As long as the Lord has... So this was a situation they could have given, but they didn't even bother. So the boys went back to Krishna. We asked them, but they wouldn't comply. And Krishna just smiled, and he said, that's all right. He said, when you go begging something, very often you are turned away. People don't like beggars. Like when you ever see people on the intersections, with the signs, anything helps, God bless, homeless, hungry. One guy said, I'll be honest, I just want a beer. Whatever works. So most of the people, obviously, don't look. They don't even want to look at those beggars, which you can imagine is very debilitating. It's very demoralizing for those people in that position. And yet people do it out of desperation or whatever. So the boys were feeling like that. We weren't even treated as persons. We were just treated as an annoyance by these Brahmins, by these priests. But Krishna just smiled. He didn't get mad. He didn't empathize. He just smiled. I said, don't worry. When you beg, you can expect to be turned down sometimes. Why don't you go ask those Brahmins' wives instead? So actually Krishna had this plan all along, because he knew that although the Brahmins were attached to their rituals, their wives were great devotees. And that was his real desire all along, to see these great devotees. So the boys went to the wives of the Brahmins, who were dutifully taking care of things at home. And the boys said, Krishna sent us, he and Balaram are hungry. Do you have anything for us to eat? And the wives immediately said, Krishna is hungry? Oh! And they gathered everything in the kitchen, everything they could, and went running to be with Krishna. And then they brought all this wonderful food, and they were so happy to see Krishna. And so Krishna was happy to see them, and he smiled, and he said, thank you very much for this food, and they chatted a bit, and he said, okay, you can go back home now. And then the wives didn't want to go. They kind of said, do you realize what kind of husbands we have? We'd just much rather stay here with you than go back to these husbands who are all attached to their rituals. But Krishna said that would be very inappropriate. That would be adharmic. That would be counter to the principles of social and religious etiquette. So you go and stay with them, even if they're not the best husbands, and you can remember me in your heart. So in this way, he pacified the wives, thanked them, and they returned. So then the Brahmins, having seen this whole episode, suddenly realized that although they're doing all these rituals to please God, when God himself had come and asked them for food, they had turned him down. And they realized that their wives actually had devotion where they had none. So they began to curse their rituals. Damn these rituals. Damn all of our procedures. Our wives have realized the highest goal of spirituality, and we have no clue. This is a common phrase amongst women, that men have no clue. Right? Am I right, ladies? Men have no clue because the two hemispheres of their brains don't talk to each other. There's the intuitive hemisphere and the rational hemisphere, and the men are like totally in the rational side. Whereas, this is a biological fact. The hemispheres in women's brains communicate well. So they can see the emotional side as well as the rational side. And men, because they're very strong in the rational side, can excel often in abstractions and philosophy and mathematics and science. But men need to learn to get in touch with their intuitive side in order to be relatively humanoid. So, anyway, the Brahmins were having a moment of insight in connecting with their intuitive side. we had no clue about our relationship with Krishna. And therefore we have missed this great opportunity of human life. So what is the use of all of our rituals? It's said that if rituals don't bring you love of God, what good are your rituals? And if you have love of God, what need is there for rituals? So either way, the goal is love of God. It's like, doing something but having no idea about the purpose. So anyway, the Brahmins who were traveling with Lord Chaitanya, with Ramananda Roy, were like this. They were very attentive to dharma and etiquette and rules, but they did not know the purpose of these rules. They could not understand how ecstatic love of God impacts a human being. Ecstatic love of God means that one has awakened one's deepest spiritual identity, and the results are, as we were reading, are very powerful. They result in paralysis, choking of the voice, horripulation, which is a $5 word for hair standing on end. You want to add that to your vocabulary? Horripulation, if you don't know it already. Horripulation, shaking, trembling, what else? Inability to speak, rolling on the ground, tears, foaming at the mouth. Things that would get you Baker acted in the U.S. Committed. But this happens when there is actually overwhelming realization of God. And it's not at all like painful, it's ecstatic. It's like the highest expression of ecstasy. But these are the advanced stages of bhakti. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the embodiment of all of these ecstatic emotions, and Ramananda Roy and other great devotees, intimate devotees, also manifest them in his association. So Ramananda Roy is the incarnation of Vishaka. Anyone know who is the incarnation of Lalita? Swarup Damodar, the other intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya is both Radha and Krishna, and Radha's dearest friends are Lalita and Vishaka. So Lord Chaitanya is naturally so attracted to being with these two devotees, Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar. It was only with these two and very few others that the Lord could discuss his intimate realizations about Radha and Krishna. And that takes place at the end of his manifest pastimes in Jagannath Puri, Antya Lila. But at this stage, I'd like to talk for a few minutes about relationships, because what we're seeing here is this pantheon, this quilt of relationships. There is a relationship between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Roy, which puts them both in ecstasy. Then there's the relationship of the Brahmins, who are kind of outsiders and can't understand what's going on. So, in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mam Upashrita, that people who become freed of 3 things can take to spiritual life. Anyone know what are those 3 things? Raga, attachment. Bhaya, which is fear, and Krodha, anger. Attachment, fear, and anger keep us anchored in materialism. So he says that being freed of attachment, fear, and anger, many aspiring spiritualists in the past have become imbued with love of God. So it's a well-established path. In his commentary on that verse, Srila Prabhupada explains, raga is very obvious. If we're attached to intoxication, if we're attached to sex life, if we're attached to meat eating, if we're attached to intoxication, these things prevent us from becoming attached to God. We only have so much capacity to be attached. So if we invest the attachment, like Jesus says in the Bible, lay not up your treasures on earth where moth and rust corrupt. But rather in the kingdom of God. Attachment to the material will always be disappointing because it's transitory, but attachment to God lifts us to a higher stage of consciousness that goes on and on and on throughout life and throughout the next life and on. So raga, obviously, that's an easy one. And Krodha is another one that's rather easy to recognize as an impediment to spiritual life, right? Anger makes fools out of us all. How many times have we said something in anger and then we have to go back and apologize? Right? So when we act in anger, we do and say stupid things, and then we have to try to fix it. So obviously anger is a big impediment to spiritual life. But fear is the one I want to focus on this morning. Fear is also, bhayam, has to be overcome. Now, what is that fear? In the purport, Srila Prabhupada has an interesting definition for fear. Fear is, he said, being afraid of a personal spiritual relationship. That fear has to be overcome in order to progress in spiritual life. Fear. Anyone know what fear stands for? The acronym FEAR? Draupadi? Huh? Yes, false expectations appearing real. Fear. So fear is like an illusion that forces us to act in a way that is self-defeating. Out of fear, we do things that really don't make us satisfied. Yeah, so what is this fear of a personal spiritual relationship? Well, relationships are a double-edged sword, aren't they? Sometimes if it's a sweet relationship, we are absorbed in it, we are happy, we are blissful. But then if that relationship goes sour, then we are so disappointed, we feel betrayed, we feel anger. So every time you get in a relationship, there's an element of risk. It could be good, it could be bad. So, back in the 60s, when music was good, there was a band called Simon and Garfunkel, an act Simon and Garfunkel sang. Anyone heard of Simon and Garfunkel? Few enlightened souls. Simon and Garfunkel sang, I am a rock, I am an island, and a rock feels no pain, and an island never cries. So this whole song is about how this person has just isolated themselves from relationships. I am alone. I have my books and my poetry to protect me. And so it's a very plaintive song about a person trying to find relief from relationships in solitude. We also, in Krishna consciousness, we like to rail on the impersonalists because that's our relationship with them. But this is how the impersonalists deal with relationships. How? Well, yes. Ultimately, they're like the Simon and Garfunkel approach, the Paul Simon approach. I just want to remove myself from society. I want to remove myself from any relationships because they're such a pain. I just want to get away from them. So they go to remote places, to the Himalayas. This is the traditional idea of a yogi. I'm just going away from the village. I'm going away from my family. I'm going away from society, so I can just meditate and deepen my relationship, or deepen my realization of the Supreme. And the ultimate goal of the impersonalist is to become God. So this is what, yes, Nanda Braj Prabhu, you're saying. I will worship God so that I can become God. And then I don't have to worry about any of this worship anymore. I'll be the top dog. So this is a very, what do you say? It is a very motivated kind of relationship, isn't it? It is like, okay, it's like somebody getting a job and brown-nosing the boss. Oh yes, boss, whatever you say, boss. But what are they thinking? Inside they're thinking, now, if I just play it cool, and I just do whatever I'm told, then eventually I can have that position, and I can boss people around. So this is the same way the impersonalists approach God. There's no sense of relationship. It's just, I want to take the position. So, as Giri Raj Maharaj wrote, if to become God is your ambition, why should God help his own competition? This is really no relationship at all. It's just a strategy to and then as soon as I've got it, I'm done with God. Or I take a guru to help me become God, and as soon as I'm God, through with the guru. So there is a sense of avoidance of relationships permeating impersonalism. And we all have that inclination. It's a natural response to pain. When we have pain, we withdraw. That's just human nature. We don't want to keep in a painful situation. So people enter relationships, take the risk, and then if there's pain, want to withdraw. This is like half the marriages in America end in divorce. Do you think those marriages started with animosity? No, they started with intense attachment and hope and vision and affection, and then after some time that turns into such bitterness that people say, I never want to see this person again. Right? So in spiritual life, we also take big risks in relationship. First of all, there is a relationship with Krishna. We're entering a relationship with Krishna. The beautiful thing is it's just, you can do it theoretically. You don't have to do it like a catechism or signing an oath of allegiance or anything like that. Just theoretically, okay, if Krishna is God, let me worship him and see what happens. And if nothing happens, then I don't have any obligation here. You know? I've not tattooed Krishna on my forehead. I have not, had to pay thousands of dollars for a membership. I have not signed any kind of a contract. I'm just approaching Krishna theoretically, testing him out, kicking the Krishna tires, seeing if this is a fit for me. And that's fine. Krishna makes this really clear in the Gita. Chatur vidha bhajanti mam jana sukritina arjuna. Artha jigyasa artha arti gyani cha bharatar shabha. Yes, that people approach me for different reasons. Sometimes they approach me just because they're broke. Sometimes they approach me because they're in pain and distress. Sometimes they approach me because they're just curious. And sometimes they approach me because they're wise. Anyway, one approaches Krishna. Krishna is very happy to accept. That's the beautiful thing, that Krishna can reciprocate whatever motivates us to approach him, even if it's just to test. But it is a relationship. It is a relationship. So in a relationship, there's risk. And the risk is if we approach Krishna and we don't like it, or we're disappointed somehow, then we are disgraced with our friends who we told about it, or our family, or whatever. We're risking. We're risking people judging us to be fanatics. Okay, we're risking that people will think we're strange or weird. We're risking that we might have to change our lives dramatically. So much risk to approach Krishna. But the biggest risk of all in approaching Krishna is what? A different kind of relationship. How do we approach Krishna? Surrender to a guru, yes. Yes, so this is the biggest risk of all. And we approach Krishna, and Krishna says, okay, you want to approach me? Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Then you approach my devotee. Approach somebody who is already in a relationship with me, and that person can guide you. We see this often, and it's just a normal thing in society. If you wanted to approach an influential person, you'd probably make an appointment with a secretary. The secretary knows their schedule, they know their likes and dislikes, they know their business, they want to know your business. They want to see if you have legitimate business with the person that they represent. And that's the filter. So it's a very reasonable request, isn't it? For Krishna to say, yes, you can approach me, just approach my devotee. Approach me through my devotee. Because the devotee is not going to say, yes, now I'm the big shot, you worship me. The devotee is going to say, yes, you can worship Krishna, and this is how. But that relationship with the guru is that's where it really gets into the fear of a personal spiritual relationship. Right? Because if we enter a relationship with a guru, this is a person really in whom we're placing a lot of trust. we're placing a lot of trust that this person is not going to exploit me in any way. This person is not going to manipulate me for his or her own purposes. This person has nothing but my welfare in mind. This person is completely dedicated to helping me get that which I seek, which is enlightenment, which is a relationship with God, which is realization of myself, which is a solution to my many problems that are resulting from this godless life I've been living. So to accept a guru means to enter into a very precipitous relationship. We're risking a lot. Therefore, first, that relationship should not be entered casually. I was speaking with a young man in Austin earlier this week, nice young man. He was telling me about his introduction to a certain spiritual path. He had been there to do some work on the temple building, and then after the work was completed, they said, "Oh, we're having a ceremony this evening. Would you like to come?" And he came, and he was initiated. So this is. This has its appeal, right? Low risk, low reward. Low risk, oh yes, sure, I'll say the mantra, I'll do the ritual, whatever. But an actual guru means that one is supposed to find shelter and be able to commit deeply to a relationship. So therefore, it isn't entered into in a casual way. And at the same time, it's entered out of an intelligent realization that I cannot solve my own problems. I have been trying to solve my own problems, and I've been failing spectacularly. It's said that one who is one's own guru has a fool for a disciple. So all of us have tried to solve our own problems because that's very efficient, it's convenient, it is low risk, and we like being in control. We don't want anyone else to have control. We want to be in control. And we can figure out our own solutions and we remain in control. The problem is that the very urge to solve our own problems is the problem. The very idea that we can solve our problems is the problem. It's born out of pride. So, and that pride is unrealistic. Have you ever heard of narcissism? Anyone ever known a narcissist? Is anyone here a narcissist besides Shruti? That word, I think it was a Greek god or something who, this Narcissus was so beautiful, that so good looking that he would just sit on the edge of a pond all day looking at his reflection. Oh. So obviously for a narcissist, it's very difficult to have a relationship because you already are the most wonderful person in the world. Who needs a relationship? The actual symptom of narcissism as a sort of a sociological sociopathy, is that the word? We're a mental disorder which prohibits one from normal interactions. The symptom of a narcissist is that they can't love anybody. They're so much in love with themselves that they can't love anybody. And so it is that, it's a spectrum. We all have a degree of narcissism, otherwise we wouldn't want to dress nicely before we go out. And it's not in and of itself a bad thing, it's just too much of it is a bad thing. So the ability to love is inhibited by our self-absorption. The ability to love is inhibited by our own estimation of ourselves. This is why the relationship with the guru is the entryway to spiritual realization, because we have to approach a guru in a humble state of mind. We have to approach a guru with a recognition that you know something I don't know, and I want to know what you know, so I am submitting myself to you for instruction. That's, again, a very high-risk relationship, but it's a high-reward relationship also. It's high reward because it's really the only way to approach the Supreme Lord. Krishna says that one who claims to be my devotee is not my devotee, but one who claims to be the devotee of my devotee is actually my devotee. So this is the great gift that Srila Prabhupada has given to us all, that we can approach Srila Prabhupada as our guru and take instruction from him through his books and through his life and example, and begin our spiritual lives with that relationship. Then, in the course of time, when we are sufficiently comfortable with Srila Prabhupada's character, and Srila Prabhupada was the most benevolent person imaginable. I mean, he had no ulterior motive whatsoever in presenting Krishna consciousness. What was his only motive in coming to the West and taking all the trouble that he did? What was his only motive all the time? That's right, the order of his guru. That just, whatever else happened, what is that? A.K. Ham Kuru Nandana, right? The single-pointed purpose of pleasing his guru was what drove him. That's all. He wasn't coming for money, he wasn't coming for fame, he wasn't coming to make a big name for himself. He was coming to popularize Krishna amongst people who had no idea who is God. And the reason he was successful is that very selflessness. So we can confidently approach Srila Prabhupada through his instructions to begin our journey in spiritual life. Whenever we read about we need a guru, we think, okay, Prabhupada is my guru. And then, in course of time, when we become a little convinced by the experience, the powerful transformative experience of bhakti, then as a further submission to Srila Prabhupada, we can accept one of his followers as our where the rubber meets the road guru. Right? And we need that guidance. Like, should I do this or should I do that? The guru will only require, in our sangha, will only require 5 things. No meat, fish, no meat, no meat, fish or eggs, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex. And then chanting 16 rounds. That's the minimum required to take initiation in this sampradaya. It's not something you can do at the first ceremony. And it's obviously not something to do casually. It's a big commitment. But beyond that, we are empowered to make our own decisions. We just consult our guru for this. What do you think about this and that? It's not that surrendering to a guru means now, whatever you do, I will say. I mean, whatever you say, I will do. Whatever you say, I'll do. Okay, I'll do this, I'll do this. We don't want devotees to be in this position of what they say, jai men, yes men, that's just unable to make decisions and unable to act independently. No, Prabhupada said we want independently thoughtful devotees. So beyond the 5 basic requirements for initiation, we are responsible to make decisions intelligently. And again, we can take advice, we can take consultation. But taking a guru doesn't mean now I give up my whole life, I just do whatever I'm told. No, it just means that I'm going to come closer to Krishna through these basic guidelines to a person to whom I have made this commitment. If we take initiation and then we smoke a joint, Krishna's not going to come off the altar and hit us with his flute. But the guru may come and whack us in the head with his cane. We're going to get reciprocation in that way. That's the relationship that we accept. And like one devotee approached Srila Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, what should I do for Krishna? And Prabhupada said, what do you want to do for Krishna? And the devotee said, whatever you tell me, Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, that isn't what I said. I said, what do you want to do for Krishna? So he challenged the devotee to be introspective, to examine his own life and motivations and hearts. What really motivates me? That's the job of the guru in our relationship with our guru. Find out what it is that is most dear to us, that is most natural to us, that what really motivates us to how to serve Krishna, what way to serve Krishna. Some people will love to decorate the deities. Some people will love to play instruments. Some people will love to cook and serve prasadam. Some people will love to write, and some people will love to speak, and some people will love to paint. There's just so many ways to serve Krishna. So the job of the guru is to find out what is that particular quality that motivates this person the most, and then draw that out and try to encourage and engage that. That is the beautiful relationship, a functional relationship between disciple and guru. It is a selfless position to be a guru, and yet that's at the end of our spiritual journey. If we are successful in finding out what we love to do for Krishna, if we can follow the regulator principles throughout our lives, more and more Krishna will, in our relationship with Him, He will expect us to take responsibility for others. There's a beautiful verse in the Bible on this point that he said, what good is a fire kept within a pot? A fire is meant to give light, but if that light is covered, what is the value of it? So in the same way, if we are successful in our Krishna consciousness, at the end of the day, we're going to have the responsibility of taking care of others. Again, another risky relationship, because you take responsibility for somebody and then they hit the wall and then you suffer. But that's the risk that Prabhupada took with so many of us, and similarly, that's the risk Krishna wants us to take with others. If we take responsibility for others in our later mature stage of spiritual life, the beautiful part of it is a great incentive to continue our own spiritual practices. And otherwise, what is the incentive? It's sort of like a tree with no fruits. It stands there, but it's not contributing anything. So this is the ultimate relationship for the devotee, to find a guru, to surrender to that guru, through the guru's help to discover our own unique service for Krishna, and then to help share that experience with others. Hare Krishna. All right, any questions? Any reflections on these points? Okay.
Thank you for the class.
Uh-huh.
Hare Krishna. So, I'm thinking about this idea you mentioned of just saying, I'll do whatever you say, and what might be the motivation for having a relationship like that.
Mm-hmm.
And one I could see as laziness. It's just easier if someone just tells you what to do. And then another is not wanting to take responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else will be at fault if things go wrong. And I won't be blamed if I just can blame it on the person who told me what to do.
Right.
I'm wondering if you have other motivations you could see or elaborations on what I shared.
Mm-hmm. Yes, a sense of inadequacy. So I don't know, of course, in a proper way, that's a good thing. But being overly pliable, like I don't know what to do. That's important initially to recognize, to come to the humble position of saying, I can't solve my own problems. But then we don't want to remain in that position. Yes, Gurudev, I can't solve my own problems, tell me what to do. You see, through a relationship with a guru, we should become able to resolve our problems. So laziness, inadequacy, and irresponsibility. Like the Nazis at Nuremberg, they would often use the defense, I was just following orders. I committed these atrocities against the Jews, but I was just following orders. So, to an extent, that's a defensible position. But to an extent, it's not also. It's because we ultimately are responsible for making those decisions. Shruti, have a good trip. We'll be in touch about that question. Okay. All right. So that's a very good question, Brihad Prabhu. So we got laziness, inadequacy, irresponsibility. Anything else you think of? Okay. Complacency. Yeah, it's kind of connected to laziness, isn't it? I don't want to have to think myself. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else? Any other reflections, thoughts, questions? Jose, anything come to mind? Okay. Draupadi. Jai. No one is happier than a teacher with a day off, with a week off.
Try to figure out how to word it.
English, please. How to English it.
How to English it. What's something that can help you get over your fear of a personal relationship with Krishna?
Really good question. The answer is experience. It's experience. We all have experienced the mystic happenings in our lives that have brought us to Krishna, haven't we? I mean, is there anyone who didn't have some amazing coincidence or cosmic event that put them at a certain place, at a certain time, to meet a certain person and have a certain, that somehow brought them to Krishna? So that's the beginning. But those experiences go on to become practically like a daily affair. Like miraculously, things will just line up so that it's okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And you can feel Krishna making us, making those arrangements, guiding us. Sometimes we run into a situation that we were expecting to go, into a nice relationship or whatever, and then we totally hit a wall. And then we think, wait a minute, Krishna, what is this? I was supposed to have this happy thing happen, and now you've taken it away. But that's also, we come to realize after the initial pain that, wow, I really dodged a bullet by Krishna's grace, you see, or somehow. So by experience we see that even when things appear painful or negative, they are arranged by Krishna for our benefit. And indeed that happens a lot as we progress in Krishna consciousness. Just like a dentist, we go to the dentist. Why? Because our tooth is really hurting. So at the dentist we experience some pain while he's doing his work, but then the greater pain subsides. So some lesser pain is accepted for the sake of avoiding a greater pain. But then miraculously we see how much this has benefited us. So, there's so many examples. So daily miracles is the answer. Daily miracles that Krishna is working in our lives, moment to moment, hour to hour. As we're approaching Him, remember, this is the deal that He makes. If you approach me with love, I'll give you intelligence. Intelligence what? How to come to me. Jai. Hare Krishna. There is a Kirtaniya Sadahari, always chanting. So I hope that answers your question. To have faith in something with which we have no experience is foolish. It is really only experience that creates genuine faith, unshakable faith. That's called nishta. So repeated experiences of Krishna's benevolence give us faith. We have to be a little vulnerable to allow Him into our lives to some extent, so He can show us those miracles. Does that answer your question?
It's kind of like the next part. Like, because I've been vulnerable and had these experiences, I'm scared to keep doing it because it's going to be like a lot.
Yes. Srila Prabhupada gave this example of hot sugarcane juice. Sugarcane juice, like when you grind sugarcane, it makes this one. It's very, very sweet. It's very delicious. But when it's heated, then it's if it's too hot, it burns your throat. And yet it's so sweet you can't stop drinking. So Krishna consciousness is like that. That the more we go, the more sweet it gets, and the more challenging it gets at the same time. So this is a good thing because you can't be complacent in this relationship with Krishna. It is ecstatic. Material life is static. It's just like more of the same: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Mating, sleeping, eating, and defending. Defending, sleeping, mating, and eating. So that's the extent of the variety. But spiritual life is ecstatic. One thing I've seen, I always share with young devotees, is that if you chant Hare Krishna, you will see the world. It just kind of happens automatically, right? Lakshmi Priya, what did you say? You see the world. It just sort of happens. So many people in Texas have never been out of Texas. And so many other people in Texas have only made it as far as Oklahoma. You chant Hare Krishna, man. You'll be in New York for Rath Yatra, and then you'll be in Los Angeles for another Rath Yatra, and then you're going to be in Mumbai landing at the airport because you're going to Vrindavan, and it just happens. You're going to go on a pilgrimage to Florida. You're going to, right, isn't it? So that's just a little reflection of the ecstasy that happens externally, what to speak of internally. Internally, you're going to change. If you're happy with the way you are, don't chant Hare Krishna, because you are what you are. Be happy with it. But if you really want to change, if you really want to have something dynamic in your life, then approach Krishna, and keep approaching Krishna, because then you'll change. And then you have to do it every day. You have to get up and chant every day to keep your connection with Krishna. Again, it's this big Bible morning this morning, but there's another verse in the Bible that if you want to follow Jesus, you have to pick up your cross every day. So it's not something you do once and say, okay, I believed in Krishna, I surrendered to Krishna, Haribol. It's like every day, okay, I got to surrender again, now I got to surrender again, now I got to surrender more. But it's like the hot sugarcane juice. It's hard, but it's so sweet that you can't stop. And that's how we are extracted from the material world. We have been entrenched a long time, very self-defeating habits, so many bad habits so we extract ourselves through this path of bhakti that is not something cheap, but is something that's very rewarding. All right? Okay, I think we can stop there. Any other urgent? Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Vivo. stole your jacket.
Should we go for breakfast?
Yeah, Maharaj was here and then Nandini approached me and said, I'm cooking an early lunch for Maharaj because she's going to Oklahoma City. Yeah. She's having lunch at 11.
Maharaj leaving today?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So this is our only chance to see him.
Oh, you want to see?
I'm going to, no, I have a meeting with Krishna House, everybody, it's like 5 devotees at 11 o'clock. So it's inconvenient all the way around.
Oh, okay.
Now, you just confirmed it when you told me somebody else had made, had some other plans, so. He and I agreed to meet at 10.
Okay, he meet you 10?
Yeah, we'll just
Okay, wonderful.
we'll see him at 10 and then.
In the quarters, in the upstairs?
Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.